This is Toni Navy here, and I'm back to answer the question I was given by one of the people wanting some tips around being able to develop and digitize their training program online. So you guys know I'm connecting always with a speaker, a corporate trainer, somebody that's an expert looking to take all that content that they have and be able to leverage it, developing a program online, digitizing it, and being able to deliver it to a particular participant or making sales from a corporate or an individual perspective. So the 5 tips that I wanted to actually deliver today in regards to being able to systematize your training to sell online virtually or just in an online platform. And the first thing I would say is basically refining that program so that you can really make sure that it's something that's in demand for right now. So for example, I have done a job of going into corporations, being able to train on behavioral interviewing or how to interview and hire the right kind of candidates, being able to coach a candidate, as well as being able to shift or change those leadership skills so that you can become a more effective leader. And so in this space that we're in with the pandemic and crisis, with all the stuff that's going on right now, what I've had to do is actually shift according and refining my programs according to what's going on and what's needed in this space. So now it's okay, how do I lead high performing virtual teams? How do I lead high performing on-site teams in the space of a pandemic, which is a difficult thing of how to bring people back in with all of the challenges around that. So that's what I mean by looking at what you have right now. Is it the right time for this marketplace? Maybe it's not, or maybe you can shift or pivot that particular program. Maybe you can't, and you need to teach something completely different. If you have a vast amount of expertise, there's a ton of things that you're able to actually still sell. People still need the solutions that you have, the content that you have to offer. It's just all about how do you actually make sure it's something people need right now and that you can communicate it in a way that will hit them so that you're hooking them in for a time frame like this so that they can make a buying decision. The second thing I would say is that you need to define that target market, that profile, and also the decision maker, because the purchaser, right? They're not always necessarily the same. If you, like I do many times, sell into corporate, well, the decision maker of who's going to actually write the check or put down that credit card for a training program may be very different than the participants. It may be their people or their team that's going to consume that. Or you could actually be going after an individual. So you being able to say, what's my training program? What am I really delivering? Who is it for? And yes, we don't always like to do the demographics and they say, what's your target market profile? It's so important because the moment you start communicating about what you're trying to train and get across, the words you use are going to be different if I'm talking to someone that's in corporate than if I'm talking to an entrepreneur or than if I'm talking to an individual, or at least I'm going to say some of the words where multiple individuals will recognize, when they hear this message, they know that that person is talking to them. So that's why it's important to do a target profile. It also helps you to be able to be more spot on with how you market, not only just how you communicate, but think about the platforms and all the social media and everything that's out there right now. If you have a target market that's still big enough to do business, to make enough sales to have a viable training program out there, but you're going after a market, you also may be able to say, okay, where does that market congregate? One of my target markets for one of my programs, helping people to develop and digitize and get their programs online, is also for authors. Yes, it's for speakers and facilitators, but I just learned yesterday, working with Summer, she is the head of Core Women. I was on her podcast with her. She's totally amazing. And she was telling me, oh my gosh, if you're looking for authors, you need to go on Twitter. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding? I had no idea. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to update my profile because I need to do some more research beyond just my LinkedIn profile, Facebook, and the groups that I know for my authors. But I need to make sure I'm in all the right places to be able to connect with those folks. So it does make a difference for you to have a profile and keep that updated, because as you learn things from other people, you'll learn different ways to access and connect with your target market. And you'll understand what your sales cycle is as well when you identify who the decision makers are, right? If you're going after an individual, it may just be that person that can whip out a credit card. But what if it's a family? What if it's a couple? You don't want to just talk to one or the other. That's why a lot of times you'll see with insurance groups or insurance agents or other folks, they will say, we need both of you there at the same time, because both of them have to decide. You don't want one person getting the information saying, oh, let me go back and check with my spouse, and then the sale never happens. Same thing with the corporate side of the house. It makes you recognize, okay, there's going to be a longer sales cycle to actually get a contract, unless they're ready right now to go. The third thing that I believe is one of those good tips for systematizing your program is being able to do a better job of outlining your program and the outcomes or the result of those programs, or of the one program, excuse me. I worked this summer with a client, and just what I think one of the things that happens is a lot of times there are people that have a ton of information, and it's like, how do I take all this stuff and whittle it down into one key or core program? And for all the things that you as an expert may have, a speaker, a facilitator, whoever you are out there, you may have a ton of content, and maybe you have more than one program. The key is when a person walks away from your training program, you're not trying to give them 20 modules, because that's not of value. People cannot absorb that much content. It's like a fire hose. Sometimes people do need a lot of information, but you need to make sure you're thinking through, am I giving them the ultimate transformation of this particular session? And what does that look like? What are the real bare bone key components, so that people walk away feeling like they got a transformation, but also that it was complete, that you are really giving them some of the tangible things that they need to do, to make a transformation. So I said outline, and then I said outcomes. These are very important, because the moment you do your outline, and now you have five chunks, or five core pieces of the outline, which become 5 modules, right? Underneath that, or not underneath it, but once you actually break down each module, each portion of the outline, now you're looking at the chunks of, or the actual modules of your program. And now you need to do outcomes for each of those sections. The outcome from the overarching program itself. But then if a person goes to module number 1, what do you really want them to accomplish there? What are the results that they're going to be able to get and walk away with, or do, as a result of going through that module? And so you do that all the way through. That way, once they're complete with that module, that they really are getting the transformation they're supposed to, because you know up front what you're expecting them to get out of it. Not just going into this and saying, oh, I'm just going to deliver this presentation because it sounds good and it's what I've been doing. It's you thinking through, because now you're doing some virtual things where you don't get a chance to hear all the feedback. Now people are going online to a platform where they're not always going to ask the questions. They're going to look at data. They're going to halfway sometimes look through the data. They need to be able to get a full transformation, and you need to be able to think through and make sure you're clear about, this is what it is, this is who it's for, this is what you're going to get out of this session, this is what we do in this session, right? This is what you're going to get out of this session, and make sure you get the tools behind it so that they do receive that. The fourth thing that I kind of alluded to a moment ago, as far as tips here, would be modularizing your program, breaking them down into, the outline is now broken down into modules. And I always say it's 5 modules or 7 modules. I've seen 10, and I've seen, all these additional numbers. And it's like, look, everybody doesn't want to go through 50 million things just to be able to get a result. That's why you hear 30 days, a 60-day program, something that people can realistically in their mind think, if I go through this, this is something that I can learn and actually really be able to get some traction and get whatever results that are promised from the program, even if they do a fraction of the work. So when you break it down into modules, they're bite-sized pieces. Many times you're doing presentation slides, that's great, but being able to do some assignments, some quizzes, just to make sure that they got the pieces of that training to make it stick, meaning to make a true transformation that'll be lasting, that they can use or duplicate over and over in their business, in their life, in their world, whatever transformation you're making for them. So the 5th and final tip would be, for me, is for you using the right platform for what I call platform for profits. It is really looking at the target market and having that profile. Why? Because, for example, I use a tool called Kajabi, but I use that for my entrepreneurs and individual clients. But if I'm actually going to be going into corporate, I've got to switch my tool. And one of the tools that I shouldn't say one of the tools. I should say the reason why I have to switch my tool is because in corporate, the requirements around trainings that are delivered, many times they're looking for quizzes, they're looking for assessments, they're looking for a way to measure the results of, did my person go through this training? Did they go through the full, session? You can actually see their progress online. And then they took a quiz, they've got feedback built in, those kinds of things, so that they can see tangible results and tangible transformation or changes in the people that have actually gone through the session. So those are my 5 top keys that I would give, or to answer that question. And I cannot wait to hear your feedbacks. Please put some chats below. Tell me some of the things that you're doing. These are, some of the tips and just some of my ideas. They're not all inclusive, but I can't wait to hear from you. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you further. Make it a great day.